Because what I've learned is like, I can make the most perfect message for you, but if you're not feeling aligned to it, if it feels scary, it's just going to fall aside. I said, so that starts with you. How can you feel more passionate? Because when you up-level your passion, everyone else will see that and come with you.
Well, how can you be a more embodied leader? How can you live your message even more before you go out and start sharing it in the world?
So I'm working with an organization right now that's a group of sisters, and they're pretty badass. Like, they're rebels.
Sisters, like nuns.
Well, sisters and let's not get in. Sisters and nuns are two different things.
Oh,
Okay. Yeah, there's an order of sisters.
Okay.
And one of the sisters ministers to trans families, transgender families with transgender kids. She goes with them to appointments, and she helps them navigate that system. And they do this, the sister is the communication person, has a magazine, and they're featuring the sister on their magazine. And this is their step towards standing in that truth. You know, the sisters, they take trips and they minister to families at the border. They take trips to the border. They work with marginalized communities, and this is what they stand for. And what we realized is they were kind of downplaying this a little bit. You know?
Why?
Because they didn't want to disappoint anybody or make anybody upset.
Right.
And so putting this story out there really boldly, that's a big stand for them. And that's one of the roles that I'm playing, is kind of helping them navigate that. You know, and here's the thing, that there may be people who are upset. And that's okay. They get to be that, right?
Yeah.
And also helping them navigate those conversations and helping them just stand in that. Because by doing that, then the people who are like, yes, that's where my heart lies too, are going to see that and be called towards it. So it's just kind of realigning of your priorities, because what people want the most is authenticity, right? And there's so much inauthentic stuff around us that when people see authenticity, when they see that the vulnerability of standing for who you are, and in this case, for what this sister stands for, what this whole order of sisters stands for, that's going to actually help them so much. But it can be really scary.
Yeah.
And that's kind of that's a lot of the value that I bring when I work with organizations, is helping them navigate that and helping them, because what I've learned is I can make the most perfect message for you, but if you're not feeling aligned to it, if it feels scary, it's just going to fall aside. And we're going to go back to status quo.
I learned that lesson the hard way. You know, I've worked with a lot of clients over the years, and I found I have the perfect brand for you. Like, this messaging is totally going to hit it and people are going to love it. And I didn't get it. Like, back then I was like, here, do this. But it wasn't theirs. And that's partly why, and I wonder if you do the same thing when I work with clients now, I sort of back off as much as I can. I mean, right? It's like, here, try it on if it feels right for you. Like, I don't get so attached to these things. Like, it has to be this. This is your brand. This is the messaging for you. It's more like, hey, how does this feel? Right? And it's more of a, you know, is this aligned to you, rather than me imposing on my clients?
Yes. And I feel like over the years, my work has moved from the external more to the internal, more to almost the personal development, because, you know, you can't communicate effectively externally if you're not communicating effectively internally. And what I saw was a lot of people who wanted external communications to fix or solve their internal communication. And it's exactly the opposite. So my work has moved more into helping individual leaders inside organizations raise their standards, stand in their value, be more vulnerable, be more authentic, see the power of that, and then translate that to a brand, their own personal view of self, and how that translates then to an organization. Instead of the opposite way, which is like, hey, let's make this really strong message, that if you're not prepared to, you know what I mean, stand in that and have that be part of how, you know, how you communicate, then you're going to push away from it, and it won't feel aligned.
Right. And people will feel that.
People will feel that.
I feel like, you know, one of the things you and I have talked a lot about is the value and the power of congruency and the resonance, right? Like that when we show up authentically in congruency with like embodying our message the way that you embody your brand. Like you're wearing purple hair and the cover of your book is purple and your brand is purple, right? Like when we show up in congruency and alignment, not only do we feel better, we have coherence that other people can feel because we send out signals through our heart, through our, we're just, people can feel each other, whether they're aware of it or not. And also people feel and see the congruency. I can't tell you how many times I've seen someone come to me and say, like, I want to coach on this thing that I'm like, well, you don't embody that yet. Like I don't see you as the person embodying that. And so what I'm hearing from you say, and what I know I do with my own clients too, is, well, how can you be a more embodied leader? How can you live your message even more before you go out and start sharing it in the world?
So that's a big tenet of influence is I can't ask somebody to do something I'm not willing to do myself.
Yeah.
Right. So if I'm a board member of an organization and I don't donate to that, how can I ask somebody to do something I'm not willing to do?
Does that happen?
Yeah.
You're kidding.
Not a lot because they don't ask.
Nobody knows.
Right. They don't I don't want to ask because they're not givers. But if I donate and I'm invested, how much more powerful will that be?
Wow.
And so I can't ask somebody to do, and like it's the same thing, Michelle. This woman says, I want people to feel more passionate about my nonprofit. I said, so that starts with you. How can you feel more passionate? Mm-hmm. Because when you up-level your passion, everyone else will see that and come with you. But I can't say, I want my board to be more involved, but I'm just going to sit here.
Right.
So a lot of what I do is help people raise their standards for, what they will and will not tolerate.
Right.
And raise my standards. Like, I want an involved board. I'm going to do my work to show up differently. And then they kind of oh, look at that. They, and
feels
again,
inspiring.
And so much this is unspoken, right? Like most communication is not spoken. It's all felt. And I'm like, you just raise your standards. You don't have to go in there and say, I've raised my standards. They're just going to respond differently. They won't even know why. But you have to do the work first. And you can say, I want people to up-level this, but I'm going to sit here status quo. No, you go first. Good leaders go first. So how can I embody the change that I want to see so that I can model that and mirror that for other people? So if I'm afraid to fundraise or I have a hesitancy to ask for what I want, it's up to me to do that work so that I can be an embodied leader. Because like I said, I can't coach somebody or lead somebody in something that I'm not, that I haven't embodied. So instead of, let me train your board on how to fundraise, I'm like, let me train you, right, on how to move through those things, so then you can train them.
Right.
Because now that you've worked through it, you can help them work through it because you're coming from a place of authenticity. You've done the work. And I get why people say, hey, because can you just fix them?
Yeah. I get that a lot too.
Fix them.
Yeah. Can you fix my marketing, or can you, right? People want to, do everything around. And what you're saying is, first, it all starts with the individual. Thank you, Maryanne. That was super valuable information. I know that my watchers are going to love it. And if you want to go even deeper, I highly recommend checking out Maryanne's podcast. It's called The Influential Nonprofit.
So if I can just accept that this is where these folks are at and they're not for me, that's okay.
They're not ready.
They're not ready.
And I'm looking for pretty much the same thing. We're looking for clients who are open, who are coachable, meaning that they are willing to look at themselves as the source of whatever they're looking to create, and they're willing to let you lead them, to let us lead them.